Are we live? Are we here? I think that's it. Okay, and I see one thing here already right off the bat.
All right, yeah. I started a stream this morning, and then I was like, I'm going to hop on Gary's because that's where it's at on Saturday.
It is the place to be. It really is. How's it going, man?
All right, I'm working on stuff. Let me see if I can.
I literally just walked in here and turned on the camera, so I'm not even situated yet. But
yeah, I'll get the thing going here. How's your work day? You just starting?
Just starting, and I'm on track. I'm starting a new page. Starting page 13 today. Finished page 12. Last bit, I limped across the finish line at like 12:30 at night, finishing page 12. Like it was just a slog. It was just a brutal page, and I wish I could say it was because I was drawing this like crazy shit on it that was really complicated or whatever. It wasn't. It was just and I think maybe artists will get this. People who don't draw, I don't know if they'll understand. Sometimes if you don't have a clear enough picture of what you want it to look like, it will really give you a hard time when you're trying to make it happen. Like, if you don't have a real clear sense of where you're going, you end up hitting a lot of dead ends and backtracking and starting again, and that's what I was doing a bunch with this last page.
Yeah, I've been trying to overcome that by doing really like worked out roughs, like from the get-go. So like by the time it gets to final, I'm set. Because anytime I'm like, I'll wing this one, I regret it.
Yeah. And it's, the problem. So some of it is, it's my own doing, really. It's, I've committed to this strict black and white approach to DvsM. I did make one little exception in 97. I had a little bit of a gray tone for some of it, but like generally it's like black and white, and I don't know if I'll ever do that again. Like I like to try and stick to straight black and white.
Yeah.
And I've got a few scenes in this book that are very dark, like dark rooms with a lot of stuff in the rooms and people in the rooms talking when the lights are low. And just trying to get that to look the way, like, you could just cheat it and do like, well, I'll just do the characters and I'll do a black background, done, and call it a day. But it looks like a little cheated. But then if you start adding all these little details, the room doesn't really look dark anymore. So you're trying to figure out that hint, like, how do I hint at things in the background?
Yeah.
How do I suggest that there's like a table with stuff on it here that you can't really clearly see because it's dark? Like, and that's the weird target to hit. And that's where I was flailing, like, for all.
Yeah, it's worth it though. The struggle is worth it. It's I don't know. It's funny, I'm finally caught up. I love finalizing pages so much.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm kind of varying it, because I'd go nuts just doing roughs and thumbnails.
Yeah.
And I'd go nuts just doing, like, I don't know. I think for 2 stories, it was good for, like, when it's your own work, I think it kind of makes sense to like batch it all. But I think if you're like working from another person's thing, you have to kind of keep it interesting.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but yeah, like I am now at the point where I'm having to like thumbnail out and rough out stuff, and like, so my goal this weekend is to like surpass you. That's my goal. I'm going to pass you by. I'm going to beat where you're at on the page count. That's has to happen. That's my goal.
That's pretty exciting.
Gauntlet throw down.
I knew that was going to happen. I told you that because, it's page
Well,
a week.
in theory, I kind of have to. Like, it's
Yeah,
not.
you have
It's not
to.
a competition.
Yeah.
It's like I just have to.
Right.
If I don't, I'm going to be in big trouble in a
Oh,
year.
it'd be terrible. Yeah, yeah, you wouldn't even be close to finishing. So.
Yeah, but I do like to make it just competitive as a joke.
I understand.
Yeah. So you hit a bit of a slog with the page, but you powered through it then.
I did, and
Good.
I have mixed feelings about this, but the pages that give me the most of a headache, I end up liking the most. And I that's what I feel. I'm very conflicted about that. Like, I don't like that idea of like, I mean, maybe I should be comforting myself when I'm struggling with a page, knowing like, well, it's all going to pay off and it's going to look cool once I finally get it. But that feels like small consolation when you're like, you're watching your time running out and you're really pushing and struggling. But no, I think it's going to work. I think it looks good. The other thing, and this I think especially, anyone who's done, I would think even more so, if we had Jim here or any kind of animator here, they would appreciate this. How distorted your sense of, your perception of the timing of what you've done is.
Oh, totally.
I mean, I like, for example, like the part, avoiding spoilers, of course, but the part I'm writing right now, it's basically like there's kind of an argument. And when you're writing it, you have a sense of a tempo of that. Like that it's going to be kind of like, like we're moving, people are talking fast, and I have a feeling I kind of designed it to like, it will read fast. Like, you'll be flipping pages and reading like these two people going back and forth.
Yeah.
But then when you have to slow down to draw this thing and you're spending a week on one page, it feels like this is entirely too slow. Like this is going way too long. And like I felt that with every one of them, like with every one, I was like, oh, this is just going and going and going. But then you sit down and read it and you read it in like 15 minutes. Yeah. But when you're spending that much time, like I said, I bet for an animator, it's even worse because like you're talking maybe about 3 or 4 minutes and you're spending a week animating this little thing. And it just feels like, oh, this is too long. This is too long. And it's not, it's just your time is getting messed up from working on it. But.
Oh, totally. Yeah. It's funny. With comics, it's like, I'm going to spend like about a year on this thing. And in theory, if I do it right, people will at most spend like an hour reading it.
Right. It's crazy.
Mean, that's the weird thing about comics, so it's like, and it's interesting. It takes a long time for it to really, I don't know. I think by the time it's like published and out, you're kind of able to like sit back and really read it yourself.
Yes.
But it's like, and I think like if you're printing as you go, so you're able to like see your page sequences and like the flow of it, you don't really get the full impact till it's like a printed book. And then you're flipping through it and you're like, wow, this is, sometimes it's like those moments where you're like, I probably overlabored this panel because like it's a 2-second experience for people,
Right. Well, and there is a little bit of a mystery to it because as much as you can sort of plan it out and think about it, it's nothing's going to be like seeing that final thing and flipping through it. Like you're just kind of hoping that the way you've figured it out and calculated is going to actually translate. But I feel pretty good about the pacing of this one. I feel pretty good like how I've done all my page planning. It's just, like I said, it's that distortion of you're spending a week on basically 2 people going back and forth 3 times. you know, and it just feels like, oh, this feels like it's long, and it's not. Like, but that is also weird. I think I joked about it in the comments of 97, like my last page, my thank you page, where it's like, you spend a year drawing, and someone like, even if they love it, they blaze through it in 15 minutes. And it's just like,
Yeah, and I mean,
Okay.
we're not just making stuff for other cartoonists. Like other cartoonists might take a little bit of time to like really notice, the subtleties of stuff. It's something I love about like Chris Ware, right? It's like I love that in like Jimmy Corrigan, there's a page where he just redrew a whole building when he didn't need to, just for guys like me that are going to notice like those two little wobbles and be like, oh crap, he redrew that whole building.
Right. Or I'm blanking on his name right now. Your perspective guy that did the like spiral staircase.
David Chelsea. Yeah.
David Chelsea. That's right. Yeah. It's stuff like that where it's like the average reader probably doesn't give a shit, but like an artist will look at that and be like, "Whoa, what is he doing?" And like, how did he do that? Yeah.
For sure. So it's like one of those things of like finding that balance. But I do think it's another reason. I know like you're going to be doing a con, and I think that's good. Again, for like a day.
One day, just one day. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think like if you hadn't done a con, which you have, so that's good. But if somebody out there was not a seasoned like artist who's done cons, I think conventions are really good for like getting a perspective on where cartoonists are really at when it comes to consumers, because what you've experienced and I've experienced, everybody who's been at a convention has experienced, is that moment where somebody picks up your book like they would at a bookstore right in front of you. You're looking at them. You're the person who labored. You poured years and like blood and sweat and tears, and it's your baby. And it's like they pick up your baby, they flip through it, like they don't treat it preciously.
They're not spending a lot of time.
They're kind of like they'll thumb to a page and then kind of look around like, what else is here? Like what else?
Yeah.
There's something going on over there. And then like, and occasionally you have a buy, but sometimes you have somebody do that. Maybe they spend a minute.
Yeah.
And then they put it down and go to the next booth. It's it's such a good experience for cartoonists to have, because it gives you the reality of like, that's what's going to happen at a bookstore, except that they're not also going to have the added guilt of like you being there.
The person sitting there. Yeah.
So like they're going to spend even less time than that when they pick up your book, they glance at it, and it's sad, but that's the reality of it. And that's a good thing to know, because it'll help. I think it helps artists kind of get a perspective on like, what, like the reality of what we're making, the blood, sweat, and tears you have to pour in, but also realize everybody else at the bookstore is pouring in that same blood, sweat, and tears.
Right. And then there's like a baseline ambivalence, I think, with the audience that I would suggest, I don't know where you would ballpark it, but when I'm at a con and people are filing by my table, I think for every sale you get, there are 5 people who picked it up and put it down.
Yeah.
Most people, and it's kind of I wouldn't say humbling, like that's not really that's not how I feel it, but it's a sobering experience to realize that most people just aren't interested. And most people aren't even going to stop at your table. Of the people who stop, most aren't even going to buy. Yep. So there's no, like, you're sitting there and you're watching it happen.
Yeah, and it can be humiliating too. It's good. It's humbling. It's good. It's like, it's a healthy experience, because like, even if you got like huge and famous, and you have lines of people to buy your comic, of those people, how many people are actually reading it? Not just doing it because like you're a known commodity and they want to flip your work for profit or for collectability. It's like, the readership, and then out of those people who are reading it, how many people who are reading it are like really reading it, or just reading it because it's the cool thing to read at the time? It's like the whole music conundrum, right? Like, it's good if you're in a band and you're a person or whatever, play that gig at a coffee shop where no one cares about your music. Like, you have to play that show. If you don't ever have a moment of playing that show, and let's say you blew up, you'd have like way too entitled of a perspective to really be able to appreciate what you're getting. If you hadn't played that show where like 3 people are there and like one maybe is listening to one song, like that, I think it's a good experience. I don't know. I think it's healthy, but
it's absolutely. And I think it's good, especially for guys like us that spend most of our comic related interactions talking to other creators.
Sorry, I got a kid moment. I'll be right back. Dad problems.
Yeah. I'm not looking at the chat because I suspect it's mostly a lot of Squatch trolling. You know, this is the thanks I get for naming the live stream after Squatch, commemorating my #1 fan / heckler / troll with a stream. This is the thanks I get. Ronnie, how's it going, man? Yeah, today is Free Comic Book Day, isn't it? I hope you all have fun out there. I don't have time for that shit, man. I gotta draw a comic. Sorry. Must be nice. Must be nice to be able to laze around at the comic book store, dig through the dollar box. Squatch, I'm working right now. I am working on my art file, building my art file right now. Just because you can't see it, this isn't like if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, does it make a sound thing? Whether you see it or not, I am working. Work is happening. On schedule. On schedule. Sorry.
I apologize. My son has like a mild fever, so it's like I'm having to kind of. He's like watching a lot of TV and chilling, but I had to like go get him something. So,
of course,
yeah, you know, dadding, all that fun stuff.
Of course, yeah. So yeah, it will be nice to do one day of con. I think like that was actually sort of an ideal scenario because first of all, I didn't want to take time from drawing to spend the whole 4 days or whatever it is. And just like Scott and I talked a lot about before the plague, a little burned out on at least the local Phoenix Fan Fusion con. So I wasn't sure if I really had much enthusiasm to do it again. But where this came up, where it's like, hey, share a table with us one day. It's like, yeah, okay, that sounds okay.
And when it's a booth, you're not having a front. That's a huge game changer. You know, like I wouldn't be doing TCAF like on my own because it's just like, I don't know, like on top of travel expenses and stuff to have to like pay for a table or something would suck. So that's like, but the fact that like it's an option, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll do that travel because like if it's like something I don't have to foot the bill for the table or whatever, then like I have a much better chance of like kind of doing what I'm there to do, which is promote without losing a ton of money, you know,
without it becoming an expense.
Yeah.
And I totally appreciate, you can do a con with the idea of like, look, this is kind of a write-off. This is sort of like just promotion. Like, approach it not as like, I need to make money.
Yeah.
I get it. But that being said, I've always shot to make money from cons.
Yeah.
And I always have, sometimes barely, but I always have. So the idea of like, nah, whatever, I can lose money as long as I'm out there. I don't love that idea. I think there's other ways to be out there.
I think the bigger concern's like time at the point we're all at in our career. It's just like more of like the expense you make or like even the promotion that you get from it. Is it worth the time investment? Because again, like, we're making stories that people read in 5 seconds that take, like 5 seconds of reading a comic takes like 4 days for a cartoonist, so It's like our time is so minimal. It's like you want to make sure we're not investing time that's, I don't know. I think that's more probably the issue a lot of us have with cons,
Yeah.
you know, just the
So
time investment.
my buddies, Scott Lost and Keith from the Making Comic guys
Nice.
are at who is E. Bronson? whose handle is that?
I'm curious. Is that are they related to C. Bronson?
Yeah. Is this who we and how's it going? And how probably just started, I'm assuming. But anyway, report back. I want to know how it's going out there.
Nice. San Diego is definitely a worthwhile con to do if you can swing it or get a table there.
Oh,
from what I hear,
that would be crazy. But...
yeah, I've never done San Diego.
No, I've only attended lots of times, but never. I've never really seriously thought about doing a con outside of Phoenix, just because once you start figuring in travel, it starts getting too risky. Like, you know, in terms of, it feels more like a vacation you're going to lose money on than. Like, I even looked at Tucson, which is southeast of Phoenix, a couple hours. And with the travel, like trying to figure in, like, well, would I get a hotel and all that? It starts feeling risky, you know?
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, it's only 2 hours. Maybe I could drive back and forth every day. And it's like, oh, that sounds even worse. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm slightly nervous about the TCAF thing, because it's like I'm not like a wanderlust kind of person. I'm more of a homebody, and I'm always down for like adventure and travel and stuff like that, but I don't go out of my way like seeking it. And so yeah, I'm hit with all this, like I haven't traveled outside of the country in a long time.
Yeah.
And then like also just trying to figure out like, okay, I still haven't. I get nervous when things aren't planned. I think part of, I don't know, maybe that's a cartoonist thing. Maybe it's just me. But I feel like, you know, when you're working on a graphic novel, it's like a lot of it is planning and scheduling and like mapping and being in full control of something. So the idea of like having to head to an area that I don't know with like, you know, stay at a hotel that I'm unfamiliar with, like go to a convention center that I'm unfamiliar with, like all of that gives me mild anxiety, but I'm also really excited about it. You know, it's just going to be interesting.
Oh, there we go. Nice. Well, good luck at the con. Wow. That's pretty cool.
Nice. Yeah, I think Chris Caligula did San Diego and cleaned up there, but I don't know if you're familiar with Chris, but it's like that guy is a convention god. Like he could have he could have like a quarter of a table, and he will still out earn like 90% of the people at a con. Like you guys, if you're ever at a con, you should stop by Chris Caligula's booth and check it out, because dude, just to like see like a really good booth display and a guy who's just really works it, but like in a non like salesy kind of way. Very inspiring. I feel like I understand why, like Scott, I know isn't boothing as often, but I wonder if he'd have a better time. Like, I'm curious what'll happen, because I know he's doing Phoenix too, right?
I think he's going to be there at someone else's table. Like,
yeah, for like surprise.
Like maybe surprise comics or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like I have a feeling he might do more cons after that, because I think honestly it might just be the crazy setups that he's been doing. Because Scott, like when he does like a setup, it's
he
like
goes all out.
Yeah, it's like a section of Disneyland or something. There's like fabrication and all sorts of like complexity to his booth, which is incredible. But it's like I wonder if he just did like tables where it's just his wares and that's like I think he might actually have more fun than like the crazy booth stuff.
Yeah, it's tough. Like my impression is, and I wouldn't want him to take this the wrong way. I love his booths and I think they're very cool. And that's how I became aware of him, was seeing his booths, when I would go to Phoenix Comic Con. But I do see maybe if he wanted to simplify it for himself, there's room. Like there's room, he could pare his booth back a lot, and make his life a little easier. I don't know if that would help him. I feel like though, and I want to be careful. I don't want to be misrepresenting him, but my impression, and maybe I'm projecting.
I think you should project and misrepresent.
Okay,
Scott.
I'm going to project and misrepresent.
And if you're listening, Scott, be prepared to be projected and misrepresented.
Right. Look out, Scott. I'm going to speak for you here. First of all, on this Roe v. Wade business, no, with the guy, if he's like me, this is how I'll couch it. If he's like me, it's not so much that it's a lot of trouble. It's that you feel like there's diminishing returns because the audience isn't right for what you're doing.
Yeah, 100%.
So if that's the case, then he could make life easier on himself, but it's still not necessarily going to be worth his time, or his energy. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, I kind of get that because there was a long time ago that I did, I don't know, it was like a show that I don't even know if it exists anymore, but it was called like Wizard World. And when I first released an indie comic, being like this totally green cartoonist who didn't know like to kind of cater to like go to places where your books will sell, I was like, oh, superhero people are going to be really into like this breakup story that I published. and I remember like it was such a really good experience because it made me realize like there are some cons that like aren't necessarily for everybody. Like, and I realized very quickly like Wizard World is not a convention for like slice of life. At least at the time, it was not a convention for like slice of life stories. It was a convention for like it's the only convention I've ever been at where people stopped by my booth, looked at my stuff, picked it up, and word for word, verbatim said, "I'm more of a capes and tights guy."
There you go.
And I was like, did you say that out loud? Like that's
a thing.
I don't know. Anyhow.
Yeah, I don't know what made me think of this. Just talking about encounters with customers at cons. And I'm going to bring up, again, this is sort of a weird segue. It's just in the topic of like strange encounters. I'm bringing it up as a PSA for people to not be this guy. Tell me if you've had this encounter with this particular denizen of cons.
I love it.
This guy comes up to your table. You do your whole pitch. He's like, tell me about your books or a book or whatever. You do your whole pitch. He's like, wow. Picks them up, flips through it. What made you think of all this? I mean, like you're talking. Wow. You have more coming, and you talk a little bit about that. Okay, cool. Wow, this is really cool. So what do you think? Like, what is it about? What are you trying to do? And like, you talk about that. You burn 15, 20 minutes on this asshole. And then he's like, cool. Well, good luck at the show. He sets it all down and walks away. Have you met this guy?
Okay, I'm going to have a weird take on that. I think that guy helps your table. This is something I've started realizing.
Okay, but help me then, because I feel like I want to fucking throw something at this guy's head as he's walking away.
I used to feel that way, but like one thing I've worked with, I don't know, I've started to lean into that guy because of the fact that like I'll keep him longer. That
like really engage.
This is something that like Chris Caligula, that guy, like I was telling you about. He's really good at like engaging people like that and just having long, crazy conversations with them. Because what happens is you start forming a line. And what happens is like crowd think. So like people walking by, if they see a guy interested,
Yeah.
Even if they aren't interested in your product, they're like, oh, they're having an interesting conversation. I want to be near that. I want to participate in that conversation. Next thing you know, you have a crowd. Like it's so some, like, I agree that guy can be really irritating, but there's two things about that guy. One is that guy very well could be totally wasting your time, but not realize that you're using that guy to get more people at your booth.
Right.
So yeah, totally, like, dig into that guy, like that conversation with that guy, and also exaggerate your movements when you're conversing with him a little bit, so it looks like this crazy, and you're creating a perception. I don't know. I'm rambling, but I'm like, that's how I use that guy. The other thing is, I've also learned sometimes that guy actually comes back like last day of the show and buys your book, and you're like, I had written off that guy. I wanted to murder that guy, and now he's buying my book. He wasn't.
Okay. Well, look, I'm not going to say you've turned me around on that guy, but
next time, just be more Machiavellian is all I'm saying.
I do appreciate the nothing draws a crowd like a crowd. You know, like at least it looks like something's going on at your table. You know, and like that's something, I guess.
I do know what you're talking about though, because that guy can also be the guy who's like interfering with a sale, and that's really annoying. Where it's like you're literally ringing somebody up, and he's preventing you from like selling to somebody, and that's where it's like, all right.
What
now
really
we got problems.
My aggravation with him is if I'm alone at the table, so I don't have anyone else to help me like deal with other people, and I'm seeing other people come and look at books, and I feel like I could engage them with a pitch or something, but I'm distracted with this fucker, you know, who's just asking me questions, you know, and I can smell that nothing's ever going to pay off with it. Like he's just talking and wants to, like, maybe he thinks he's being supportive. I can't tell what he thinks he's doing, or if he's actually, what's even more aggravating is like supportive would be okay. I mean, I think it's misapplied, but it's okay. What's more aggravating is if he's still like chewing on his lip, trying to decide if he wants to buy, and he needs to ask me 15 minutes of question. Like it's a $10 or $15 comic, man. Just take a chance. Take the plunge. Like like you're asking me questions like you're deciding on buying a car. Like stop it. Like just come on. Like I don't know. There's nothing more I can say about this.
So like what benefits are going to happen in my life if I buy dinosaurs?
There are certain themes I look for in my work, and I'm hoping. Is there anything about like stop it? There's a lot of people here, guy.
So have I told you my biography? Let me tell you my biography while I'm sitting here considering buying this this comic. Okay, interesting. I like Martians, but I'm not sure about dinosaurs. Could you tell me
dinosaurs?
Tell me. No, I don't really want to hear about your book with dinosaurs. I want to hear about the evolution of dinosaurs. Do you believe in evolution? Can you talk about that for about?
Yeah, seriously. Those guys are out there though. Like people might be like thinking that's ridiculous exaggeration now. I've met that guy too.
And then somebody comes up and is like, "Oh yeah, I'd like a copy." No, I'm sorry. I'm in a conversation with him.
That would have
pushing away money.
I would lose that's where Gary would flip out. If I was, someone else is coming up and trying to engage me, and this idiot is like, excuse me, I'm talking to him right now. Like, please give us some space.
So I think you guys should be getting ideas for what to do to Gary the next time.
Yeah, how to really
at Phoenix Comic. Squatch, are you out there? You got to make that happen. I'm trying to think of the ones that I don't. Okay, now that we're complaining about cons, the ones that bug me are the guy who gives you every fact about a comic that I could care less about for about a half. It's the same guy, but it's like he's not even asking about my work. He just wanted to talk about his cosplay for like 4 hours, and it's like again. I believe in cons being a fun experience, and I don't mind somebody coming by the table and just socializing. That's cool.
Yeah.
But dominating like 2 hours so you can tell me about Doctor Who, which I like Doctor Who,
Right.
But I don't know if I want to hear about Doctor Who for like five
There
hours.
are a lot of those. And like another one, now this is, I get it, and I've probably done this. It's well-intentioned. I understand, but I kind of feel like people need to stop doing it, is where they'll come up, and I don't get it very often because my comic's a little weird, but they'll come up and they'll be like, they'll get the pitch, or they'll read your thing or look at it, and they'll say like, oh, you know what? This is a lot like, and then they'll insert like some other thing that they want to compare it to something else. It's a lot like this. Have you read this? And they want to now I guess we're talking about some comic that you read that my comic reminded you of. Like I don't know. It's kind of I get that the idea, they probably think it's like a compliment. Like, oh, your work reminds me of this other thing that I like.
Yeah.
That's nice. But kind of what it comes out like to me, maybe this is neurotic artist hearing, is like your work is samey. Like it's similar to something else I've already seen. Like it's not as unique or creative as, like, oh yeah, it's like this.
Yeah.
I don't love, that's not a great compliment, I think. And I can imagine, like, if you're in a band and it's like, oh yeah, so you're like totally like, Soundgarden. It's like, you probably don't want to hear that. Like, even if you do sound a lot like Soundgarden, it's like, well, I'd like to think we sound like us and not like, oh yeah, you're like that.
Yeah, it's tough too, because like, again, it's like, I don't know, I've seen how that can kind of turn into sales. Like, it's weird, but it's like,
yeah,
again, like once I started, I don't know, my mind changed on that, because I used to get really annoyed by a lot of that stuff, and my mind started changing on that a lot, literally after seeing my friend Chris just sweep conventions. And realizing like, oh, like these things are actually like, I know it's corny, but just from like a sales perspective, if you got a guy just standing around loitering in front, let's say you're at like a T-Mobile booth and you have to sell phones. I mean, right. As lame as it is.
Yeah.
If you're at like at like a Woodstock or something, Woodstock, oh my gosh, I sound like an old man. If you're at like Warped Tour, something that's no longer a thing. You're at This Ain't No Picnic. I'll just date myself there. Like,
yeah.
But anyhow, you're at like a big festival or event and you have to sell phones. It's not going to hurt if you have like 4 people stopping by, and just, even if they're talking about themselves, like, because again, you want to think about the people passing there. People like being where other people are. So it's like, even those annoying guys, like, honestly, at LA Comic-Con, I just leaned into it with those guys. And just was like, okay, I'm going to find the most interesting thing about this person, and I will talk till they leave. And when I started doing that, like, suddenly people are stopping by and they're like, I think people want to be like, excuse me, can I look at that? Like, if you have people doing that at a con, you're having a pretty successful show.
Good. Yeah. I mean, that could be. I think. I don't know. Maybe if I have the opportunity, maybe I'll attempt that on this Saturday appearance.
Give it a shot. Lean into the annoying guy. Ask him everything about himself. Like, ask for his biography. Ask for like, oh, really? Well, how long have you been into that property? Oh, it reminds you of this property? Tell me about it. Tell me everything about it. What is it you like about that property?
You just get him just going. Exhaust him.
But as he's going, just pay attention to people around him, and you'll see like people show up. And if people are having to wait, it's not, I know it's terrible to say, but it's not a bad thing, because now you're looking from an outside perspective. Now it looks like Gary Hodges is like this rock star, because it's like, oh, you've got people waiting. Like,
people,
And then other people walk by, like, and they think, oh, that's somebody I should probably pay attention to, because there's people waiting. Yeah. It's just a weird thing.
You clearly have a less misanthropic take on all this.
I'm evil. That's the problem. No, it's not. It's not that I'm evil. It's just
evil because to me, it's like, it's just impatience and exasperation.
No, I 100% understand it, and I'm more like prone to be like, I want people who are authentically interested to stop by.
Yeah.
But again, like, I think it was just seeing Chris, who's just a better human being than me. at a booth where he's finding genuine interest in people who stop by, even the people who aren't going to buy stuff. And then you just see it in action because like suddenly Chris is engaging with somebody and 4 people come by and they're like, huh, he's talking to someone. I'm going to talk to him. Hey, could I take a look at those pins? And then Chris is like, he's the busy shop owner who's like, oh, well, I've got these wares that they're crazy valuable. So you're clearly going to wait for it. So, oh, yeah, give me a second and continue your conversation. It's weird, but it works. It's crazy. It's nuts.
All right.
Yeah. Rambling, but.
No, that's I'm gonna have to see if I can apply this. I'm also eager to see, just because of the material.
Do you have?
I do get a small percentage of conspiracy nuts, and so I don't want to engage because they will sit there all day and they will scare off the straights. Like, I mean, it's just really, they're intense and they're a lot. And you want to like wrap it up with them pretty quick and get them to move along because
No, I think that's a good call. Question too, because you don't make all ages. Like your material's not for like a 6-year-old. What do you do when you have the adorable kid come by with their parents and they start perusing your table and they're like picking up Dinosaurs versus Mars bots and about to see somebody get disemboweled?
I know.
How do you approach that?
As soon as I see like the kid's hands going toward it, what I usually do, like my business cards have art on them and they're safe.
Yes.
I'll usually give the kids a card or a sticker or something, but and in the same breath, like more directed at parent, be like, these are grown-up comics, but you can have, I'll give you a card, I'll give you a sticker, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I do the same thing. I have like a set of stickers with just the kid Josh from 2 Stories, and I'll just give them that and be like, don't this is, and I usually, hope there's a parent there and say to the parent like, this isn't like all ages, like, yeah. It'd be nice to have some all ages stuff so you could be like, but there is this, because I mean, you want the kids to have a fun time.
Because I used to go with the DvsM coloring book, and then the prints some of the prints are a little violent, but they're fairly PG.
Yeah.
But I think now that I have 2 comics, especially, I've tried to like lean it down and focus on like this is because that's all just kind of old stuff, and I'm not as passionate about it anymore, and so now it's very much like an adult booth, I think, so to speak.
I think AGMD Studios was suggesting you start a Discord server where all the conspiracy theorists can argue.
Yeah, I always know like, oh no, I done screwed up when like this has happened a couple times now when a kind of a intense looking person will sidle up to my booth and they'll be like, so what is this? And like I'll do my pitch and be like, oh, Roswell's really interesting, and it's like, oh shit, like, now
they're like, interesting fact about the Greys. You're like, oh no.
Yeah, it's like, oh god. Okay, yes, what? Go ahead, continue. Yeah.
I didn't think about the implications of like writing in that genre and the fact that like, that would be a whole audience there. That's tough.
Yeah, and I've thought in the past, even there is here in town, there's a UFO convention. And I've looked into getting a table, but because those few encounters I've had at Comic Cons are so intense, just the idea of like, that's like really going into the hornet's nest, like, I mean, it's all going to be those people. It's all going to be people about like wanting to talk about like, oh, Phoenix Lights, huh? Like, and I can't, I don't think I can sustain that for a weekend. What is this horse shit?
I think what you got to do is like you got to hire somebody to do it for you, and maybe get somebody who could be like talking about you, or just or maybe booth, but have someone else do the pitch, and then just be in the background like a Men in Black kind of mysterious character, so you can play up the thing, and they could be like, he's on to something huge here. It's like a huge thing. Something. And you could just be totally silent, like, you know.
Cons, in my opinion.
Or you could even play the like, no, he's just exaggerating. This is just a fiction book, and the guy's like, don't listen to him.
Yeah. Well, see, and now this is a look. You may disagree. I think it's a bad look at cons, and it's the look of there's a booth. The artist, whoever's booth this is sitting away from the table, kind of far back, working.
Yes.
While someone else is working the table. I think that's kind of a weird. That puts me off. Like, I don't love that. Me too. But at a UFO convention, like it might like, it's like, you know, if I'm like sitting there like working very hard in the background, that might have a different image. I don't know.
Or maybe you could just have like an assortment of files.
Look at this nonsense. Squatch. Let me explain. This is if I just have the top. Look how high that is. That doesn't work. That doesn't look right.
Is Squatch trying to undress you? That's what I'm trying to figure out here, Gary.
Or Squatch? Is that what you're asking for? Am I not sexy enough for you, Squatch? These are my fans, people. These are my fans. This is my number one fan right here.
I love it. I think, I don't know. I do think it would be a good idea to kind of do Gary's resources are remote viewers. Yeah. I just feel like there could be a UFO convention though. You would kill in like getting.
Honestly, and the way Phoenix Fan Fusion has gone, and again, I've always made money at Fusion, but the way it's trending, I would wager I would do just as good at a UFO convention, if not better. You know,
I would think better
if I kind of like let them think, you know, there's some kind of hidden messages in this. You know, like just whatever. There's some things that you might appreciate, and just like not get into it. Like I think they might be like, maybe he's doing something here. Maybe there's something here.
I think it could be cool. It'd be interesting. I'd love to hear. You know what? I have to say that would also make a really good YouTube video. Your experience at a.
It would. Maybe it's worth doing just once, just to do.
It might be inspiring too.
Yeah, I would love to see it. Like I wouldn't say I'm a UFO believer, but I'm not a UFO like, oh, it's all ridiculous. Like, I'd be kind of curious to see what the scene is like there. Like, what are they talking about? What kind of booths are at a UFO convention? What are people selling? Like,
just be careful which kind of UFO convention, right?
Yeah. A horror con would be great. And I've thought about that for myself even. I thought like DvsM probably would, like at a horror con would probably be all right.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. Honestly, HorrorCon would be great. There's a whole horror scene, you know, like, yeah. I have a similar issue with, because I delve into like mental illness and stuff like that. Every once in a while I'll have somebody come to my booth and like really talk about some heavy stuff, and you're like, I'm at a con right now.
Yeah,
like
it's really hard. Like I appreciate, but
and it's like, and I believe in talking openly about that kind of stuff because I mean I wrote a book about it, but still, like, we're at a convention, like I can't. I don't know, but it also makes for really interesting conversations because people get really vulnerable very quick, and that can be fun, you know.
Speaking of which, I think our mutual acquaintance Mike Emirates posted today that apparently it's Mental Health Awareness Month or something.
Oh, nice.
I don't know. Yeah, but I'll just use that as another opportunity to normalize therapy. I go to therapy. I think it's very important. I think it's the best thing I've done for myself, next to maybe going to college and getting a degree. I think anyone who's ever even thought about it, probably it's worth doing. And you shouldn't feel about it or embarrassed. So there you go. I've done my pitch. So.
Yeah, and also, I mean, people are. I think it's a lot more prevalent. Like, I think people struggle to exist. it's life can be difficult, and I think that's not unusual. So yeah, I think like destigmatizing that kind of thing is good. And therapy is a really good way to approach it. Yeah. Let's see here. Okay, I've wrapped that thumb. I have to disappear for a second or two. Okay. I don't know how long you're on.
I'm right now I'm just playing with layouts. I have all my text dropped in. This is a page of a character just sort of ranting, so there's a lot of dialogue, and so the layout takes a little more thought than other pages where you have a lot of room to play with dropping something in. Now I really need to think about space. So
yeah, it's funny too. I was hitting a similar struggle to like a little bit of what you were describing earlier too with my last thumbnail, because there's a sequence where like Browning is telling Elizabeth, you need to eat this, and it's like food that she's left in her room like untouched, and it was mainly like, you need to eat this so your father doesn't suspect that you've had like a visitor or whatever, right? But having somebody say you need to eat this and being in a foreground in like a room situation could, like, depending on the expression, the way you like, it could look like this super abusive, like, just terrible thing. And
it's
so
like a text where there's no context. You're like, what is this nasty?
And in the context, he's leaving the room and like pointing to the food, and like, so he's in a rush. So it's like, I have an urgent person saying this thing that could totally come across wrong if it's if it's framed badly. And so it's like trying to figure out how to kind of like, it's weird stuff like that makes conversation sequences particularly sensitive to the way they're depicted, because you have the wrong expression with the wrong words, and it can be a nightmare, you know.
It's funny you bring that up, because these, especially like this last page I just finished, probably this page is gonna I can tell already it's gonna require it. Sometimes you can fix that by changing the dialogue. You can soften whatever the words are and it'll work. But if you're married to the dialogue, now you got to make the face work, to send the message you want. And John, do you want me to mute you?
Yeah, you might want to mute me. I got the dog thing.
To get the dialogue to play right, the way you're hearing it in your head, that's where your ability to draw micro expressions, little face, like subtle expressions, subtle emotions in a face, like, get tested, and takes so much time to get the face exactly right, to get the eyebrows, and like how much is the brow scrunched and what's going on with the mouth, like just to get that exactly. So like the dialogue, you understand how to read that. Well, now we can't. I think, let's see. We'll unmute and see. Okay, dog settle down.
$10.
Cool. Okay. $10. Look at that. Look, he's got like a pack.
Can you get the thing for Ben? He's in his room.
Sorry.
No problem.
Why? I thought, now, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought I saw a post from Squatch saying who put his foot down on the furry shit. The furry shit was over. Is that not the case?
Okay.
I'm waiting. I want an update on like the foo as a furry thing. I thought I saw a post from Squatch saying that Fu finally was done with that. That no more furry shit.
I was under the impression that was the case. Is that not the case, Squatch?
Apparently not. Well, there's competing sources. Fu is insisting he's no. Though Fu, I would rephrase, because this is have you stopped beating your wife? Like, I'm no longer a furry. You're basically admitting you were a furry, but
that's true. Explain to us how Fu is not a furry. That's yeah.
I did like the Spider-Man homage. I thought that was good. So it was just that reason you just wanted to do that cover. Squatch is just happy that Fu accidentally implicated himself in furry.
It's so good. I love what Squatch is doing. It's a fun comic.
Yeah, when are we going to get a follow-up? When are you working, by the way, Squatch? It's always, you're so worried about my work. I remember kind of a cliffhanger in the last Squatchy and Fu. Like, what's going on? Josh and I want to know what happens.
It's true. I'm curious to know what's going to happen. There's chaos in that comic, controlled chaos.
Yeah.
And I think it needs to be gotten under control again by the creator. That's what I think. That's the question. Has the controlled chaos, has he lost control over the controlled chaos of that comic? I was thinking about this. Have you ever considered just writing pure comedy, Gary? Like when you're wrapped on DvsM?
What? I'm sorry. What? I was distracted by Fu. What did you ask?
Oh, I was curious. Have you ever thought about writing just comedy, like when you're done with dinosaurs?
I have. I don't know what I like. I believe now, Squatch. Don't. I hope your sphincter doesn't clench when I'm talking about when DvsM raps. This is years away, buddy. Just relax. Settle down. It's all okay. Once DvsM is finally completed, years from, don't worry about it. I'm not really sure. I tend to think I'd probably go back to the fantasy novel I was trying to write, for years and years. I think now it feels more attainable. I honestly feel like now that I've done both, tried to write a novel and written some comics are way harder, and now that I've done that, I feel like it would be way more and plus I think I've created better work habits.
Yeah.
Finishing things, I think I could do that. So, but I honestly, and this is more of a visual thing. The art style I've picked for DvsM, which is very controlled and realistic kind of, and restrained, it makes me crave doing something more cartoony, looser, more surreal, having more fun, more classically cartoony, and having fun with just shapes and line weights and goofing off in that way. So if I did do another illustrated thing, I think I'd want to do something more
like cartoon modern or something,
playful in some way. Yeah. And looser and less I don't know, more surreal and silly and fun. I don't know. But.
Yeah, it's funny to me. I don't know. Most people I know who are knee deep in really big projects are usually, we're dreaming up the next project. Just because it's this fantasy. I have this idea that at some point I'm going to wrap graphic novels and just spend a month painting.
Yeah, that sounds nice too. Well, I feel like that almost might be no matter what. I would love to do. I've always wanted to take an oil painting class.
Be careful. Oil painting's fun.
It's fun and it's expensive.
Yes, and it requires so much setup time. That's the downside.
Yeah, it takes over a room or wherever you're doing it, and the paint is not cheap.
Yeah, and there's no non-toxic paint thinner stuff. Like it's all toxic.
Yeah, you're poking the cancer genes for sure with like inhaling all that. I mean, that's the story about. Did you watch that Bob Ross documentary?
I have not, but I hear his family does not seem like very nice people.
Or was
it? It wasn't his family, right?
It's people that own the business.
That's
that's the problem. They kind of shut out his family.
Okay,
I think
crappy.
His son isn't even allowed to is kind of restricted in how he can brand himself. When his last name, it's real sad. Like basically he went into business with just shitty people. But there's he, died of this lung cancer. And they want, it's impossible to say, but they said one very likely cause is all the turpentine and paint thinner and everything. He was and they had this super cut of him whapping the brush on the leg of the easel. He always used to do that to dry it off. He would go and it would send, it would just aerosol thinner everywhere. And he's inhaling that shit, so they're saying this could have been it, but oh my God. Squatch. To some people. I like to talk to some people, Squatch. Some. Not all. Not all. Some.
I love it. Paul Pate's in the chats too. How's it going, Paul?
How you doing, Paul? Paul, I still haven't read your book. Not for lack of interest, just from busyness and scatterbrainedness. So I got to read yours. I got to read Jason Alexander's Ransom Notes. I have a pile of comics I can get through.
I'm glad you mentioned Jason's book because I still have to pick that up. And,
I'm excited to read it.
I'm going to actually write that right next to my thumbnail so I don't forget to buy it. Okay. Because that's a pretty cool book. It seems like a real artsy kind of thing that he's doing.
Yeah. And it's exciting to me, for the mini comics, he was doing the writing. And AGMD Studios himself was doing the art. It's exciting to me as someone who writes and does everything, one man shop, to see someone be okay, now I'm going to do it all myself. I'm always interested to see that, how that goes, because that's definitely, it's a bigger thing to take on. And it's kind of exciting with Jason because he was I think he kind of felt I can't draw, and he just put in the work to try and get to a point where he could be comfortable doing it and putting it out. And just from flipping through it, it looks great, he managed to pull it off. So it's exciting.
Yeah, now I'm thinking we should maybe have him on Artcasters just to talk about that.
Yeah,
I'll reach out to him.
Yeah,
because that'd be a good topic, just sort of the difference between writing comics and then kind of taking on doing a full project yourself,
Yeah.
See if he thinks we're all insane now.
Yeah, maybe he's got terrible regrets.
That's funny. I've thought about the opposite of writing a script. I think that between this and Two Stories Book 2, when I'm done with this book and then I'm starting Two Stories Book 2 again, I think I might take a week to write a script for a different thing and get an artist to kind of do that.
That's another thing I've thought about. A lot of the things I've thought about like after DvsM are basically projects that I didn't have the right mindset to finish before, and I have a few half-finished screenplays that I was like, oh, I could circle back and try and get those done, because some of them, like the stories, I think, like there's something there, I think it would be worth just finishing them just to cross them off the list. But,
yeah.
A one-shot comic here, there would be approachable post. Fantasy writers, you take a particular liking to. This is not an original or interesting answer, but for me, it just begins and ends with Tolkien. Like I love the Lord of the Rings, but honestly, I really love The Hobbit. Like, and it broke my heart to see like the movie version of The Hobbit, which I thought was just such a weird. I don't know. I like, though the old animated one I kind of love.
The greatest adventure is what lies ahead. Sorry.
And you know what's great about it is it like The Hobbit, especially compared to Lord of the Rings, it reads very like fairy tale-y. Like it's a very small, quaint, kind of traditional feeling fairy tale story. And the animated movie sort of captures that vibe, I think. Like it just feels like this, very, obviously Lord of the Rings went big and epic. And that was one of my frustrations with Peter Jackson's movies of The Hobbit.
Hey, careful there. You're treading on territory I love.
I feel like he made the Hobbit movies match the sort of...
Oh, the Hobbit is way less strong. Like the Lord of the Rings...
it's no good. And I think mostly because he's trying to tonally match Lord of the Rings, and that doesn't work for the Hobbit. Yeah,
the Hobbit's like a fun adventure. It's supposed to be like a kid's story.
Right.
I think... I agree with you. I think Tolkien... you have to kind of like admire and respect Tolkien, man, there's so many fantasy people I dig. I would love to do a fantasy. I was a real nerd in junior high, so I was reading like Piers Anthony. I'd love to reread those.
Yeah.
I think I read Anne McCaffrey, Dragon Riders of Pern.
And I still wish I'm surprised no one's circled back and done a movie out of it. I love this. Wouldn't work with a dirty monkey like me. Didn't know how to take that. This is a little ambiguous. I didn't know how he meant that. Dirty. I'm surprised no one's circled back and done a movie or a series or something on Stephen King's Eyes of the Dragon. It was maybe the first fantasy type novel he did before he did the gunslinger stuff. And it's just, I think it's very like filmable. I think it'd be really cool. But yeah, fantasy was definitely my go-to like most of my life. And I played a lot of D&D. That kind of stuff. So
yeah, I think it would be a fun genre to get into. It's just like to do it and not fall into the Tolkien trap would be the challenge.
Yeah, and I feel like
not everybody's Tolkien, and I don't think anyone I know is Tolkien. So I feel like if you end up having to write a Silmarillion of your own, then you're kind of already losing the battle of writing fantasy.
I should expand on my answer to Chase. While favorite would not be emulate, like not something I'm trying to do with the thing I'm trying to write. Like I don't know what I would compare it to, but it's not. Tolkien is like he's weaving this whole elaborate kind of meta myth. And like doing like going down the rabbit hole of like languages and histories and ancestors and like this whole thing that like it's fascinating, but it's not something I would have any. I think mine would be. It would be a little like DvsM in the sense that it would be like treating it like, okay, but how would this really play out?
Yeah.
Like that would be one thing in common. I think it would be very, like, at least what I've been working on, it was very character focused. It wasn't more, it didn't get lost in this idea of like, this king's grandfather was this person and his grandfather was like, and mostly because it's so character focused, the novel. It's about this character's experience within this fantasy world. So like, he doesn't give a shit whose uncle's father's grandfather is, like, it's more about his experience and his story. So
yeah. Yeah, I could see that. I think it would be fun to write all ages comic. And I think the next thing I work on will probably be, well, obviously it's going to be this Browning book and then 2 stories, book 2. But I think like if I can write a script, I'm probably going to focus on like a all ages adventure featuring like a kid finding their identity through music and band drama and all that kind of stuff. But it'll be very like tongue in cheek and goofy.
that would be fun. Yeah. Chase, another one, since I know you're a reader, I would suggest, if you haven't read it, Ursula K. Guin, her Wizard of Earthsea, is probably, it's tough. To me, it's right up there with like Hobbit and Lord of the Rings as one of my favorite fantasy novels. So, and it's a little skinny book, but I loved it a lot. So, where is has Frank boycotted me? What's going on here? What the hell? Like,
the absence of Frank? I have no idea. Yeah. I've been wondering the same thing.
That. I think he's going to hear about that next time we cross paths.
Yeah, that's we're going to have to bring some beef to Frank.
Yeah.
He got what he needed from us.
Yeah, that's right. I feel used.
I do too. I feel like discarded.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a terrible thing. I feel like, and maybe you have this too, but I feel like it's particularly when I'm doing roughs and thumbnails, it's hard to make conversation whilst thumbnailing and roughing.
It is a little tricky. I'm kind of running into it right now, where right now I'm doing like these little micro tweaks on dialogue placement. And
yeah.
It's a little hard to do both.
But it's also fun. So like which page are you working on now then? You're done with?
Yeah, finished page 12 last night. 12:30. Which isn't as late as some people, but like my cat starts meowing for food early. And I found that kind of sets an upper limit for like when I really need to be trying to sleep, because I don't know. I've reached the point where you clearly can get by on less sleep than me. I've reached a point where if I get under a certain amount, I want to die. Like, I feel like I'm hungover. I feel like I'm a mess. And so, and since I know the cat's going to go off like an alarm clock, at a certain time, like I need to try and get a minimum amount, that's, yeah. So anyway, 12:30, I did not intend to push it that late, but that's finally when I got to the point where I looked at the page and felt like I can live with this.
Yeah.
And then went to bed. It's an example. I think it came up in the Q&A, like, how do you stay on track? And it's like just being a slave to page a week. Page a week also keeps you, it makes you make decisions.
Yep.
Like, I find something I have a tendency to do is perseverate too much.
What is perseverate? I'm sorry, that's too big of a word for me.
I'm reluctant to make a decision on a direction.
Got it.
So I'll be looking at something on a page, I was like, how do I want to draw this hair or this wall or like this whatever?
Yeah.
And I'll be like, I don't know. And I'll try a couple ways, and I don't want to really like, I don't know. There's probably like a better way I haven't tried yet. And like I keep, like hesitate, and I'm not going to commit to a path yet. I don't know. And I'll draw other things on the page. I'll keep avoiding this. And then so what finally breaks me out of that cycle is realizing like, I got to finish this. I got to pick something. I got to do it some way, know, and then you just do it. Like that's again, page a week will get you back on track where it's like, look, I got to start a new page tomorrow morning. So I guess I'm just going to do it like this. And could there have been a better way? Maybe. But I can't spend 3 months drawing one page. Like I got to get done. I got to move on, so.
That's literally how you avoid the Tolkien trap, where you're not creating like a Silmarillion every thumbnail or every panel. I agree with that. I also think having like a deadline of some sort will also help you make decisions like whether you should push it and be like, maybe I should stay up till like a little later than I'm comfortable because I have to hit this mark. It gives you like like it's kind of like a race where it's like, can you imagine running a race where you have absolutely no time limit and no goal? Like, I mean, no one in their right mind is going to run like a marathon, like with any speed at all without a time limit or a goal. Like you'll just, eventually you're going to casually stroll. Even the most self-disciplined person will be like, I don't know, I'm kind of tired. There's no rush. Like whatever.
And you'll allow yourself to hurt a little bit to get it done. I mean, it's almost like showing up to work on time. Like if you could show up to work anytime, like you'll show up at 1. I would show up at 1 in the afternoon, but like, it's like, okay, well, tomorrow you got to be there at 8. You might skip breakfast. You might not shower that day. Mm-hmm. You might like, you might just have to make some command decisions to make sure you're there. And it's the same thing with like finishing your page on time. It's like, look, this could have been better. I can picture ways this would be better, but I can't spend infinite time, Yeah,
like I can't just, I'm going to make a Perseverate joke. I can't just perambulate around the time, like I just need to.
Right. I can't just circumference 8.
Yeah. It's just, it's too discombobulating.
Right.
I
need to at some point.
Yeah.
Commiserate.
So in defense of Gary, we just like 10 minutes ago were talking about how we were nerds and read fantasy novels. It makes sense. Like when you read fantasy novels, you do tend to use like a wider vocabulary than a lot of people.
Is perseverate really that obscure?
I don't think it's that obscure of a word. I was just, for me, I thought I was being really humble because I'm a bit of a word nerd. So when I hear a word I'm not familiar with, I try to be humble enough to admit that I don't know the word.
Well, there you go.
But I have to say, just that admission, because I really respect the English language, the admission that I didn't know it hurt a little bit.
Oh no, yeah. Well, look, you always get something out of showing up to Gary's live stream today. Everyone got a word of the day.
Yeah. Do we get to scream when we hear it?
Yes, exactly. From now on, that's the secret word.
I feel like we should have a secret word on these streams.
We should. Squatch, like. For him to be this engaged in the chat, he can't be working. I don't know what he's doing, but he's not working.
You gotta get on it, Squatch.
Yeah, Chase, I have not seen the Studio Ghibli Wizard of Oz, but for the same reason, I heard it's not good, and also like different from the book, so I wasn't interested. Like I wanted to see a. Something faithful to the book, so which is very doable. I don't know if it's it, and this is what I like about it. It's the same reason I like The Hobbit. I remember, like, I came from like a comparative myth, cultural anthropology academic background, so this is like my orientation is toward fairy tales and folklore and stuff like that. And Wizard of Earthsea has that flavor, and that's I think why I liked it. It feels like some folk tale that you just haven't heard yet, as opposed to someone's fantasy book. So, I'm excited to look at that. We are getting a sneak peek at a work in progress.
Ooh, some Ronnie Gunter sneak
Yeah.
peeks. Hell yeah. It's very exciting. That ties in a little bit with our talking about horror conventions, because Ronnie does a show about horror that you have been a guest on.
I have many a time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there was they floated the possibility of like appearing for an anniversary show, which is coming up. Ronnie, when's the anniversary?
Actually, there should be 2 questions in that. When's the anniversary, and has Jason watched Silence of the Lambs yet?
Yeah, he needs to get on that. There you go, everybody. Look at it. That's a weird, clunky definition for it, but
what's great is we're perseverating the perseverate topic.
Yeah. The irony.
I like that word though. That's a new word for me, and actually that's a pretty good word, because I think I like that in storytelling. I tend to be more patient than a lot of people. Like, I know people who tune out on stories that I'm like really in love with. Chris Ware is a good example. Like Jimmy Corrigan, The Smartest Kid on Earth. I like absolutely love that book, and I know people who just tune out in the first like 100 pages because they're just like, I can't just watch a guy like wipe his nose for a page. Like, that's just annoying. And for me, when I read it, I was like, that's brilliant. Like, it's just weird. I think I'm more patient than a lot of people with storytelling.
Yeah, I know. Whoops. Well, it's always scary when you delete something, even though you have undo. You're like, yeah, I know I'm that way, and I suspect that's like an easy way to figure out if you'd want to read my comics or not. Like, some people read my comics and they compliment it. They're like, he takes his time, telling the story, and like that's, which I do, and I think it's important. But I also get that a lot of people, they either don't have the attention span, or to give them some credit, it's not that they don't have the attention span, that's just not what they want from a comic. That's not the kind of pacing they want from a comic, which is fine.
Is it fine?
I don't understand. They're bad people, but I don't, it's fine.
Because I'm like,
people in the world too.
The great thing about slow builds,
I'm content to watch a 3 or 4 hour movie and like not, like I knew a lot of people who came out of the Batman and were like, ooh, that was hard. Like it was this like, and I was fine. I had to go to the bathroom, but I was fine.
Is the Batman slow paced?
It's like 3 hours or something. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. I'm going to have to check it out. If it's slow paced, it's probably my thing.
Yeah. I love it. I really liked it. It's up there with Jim Lujan and I were talking about it just the other day, and we both agreed that it's right up there with Dark Knight. It's as one of like maybe the best Batman movie.
Nice.
It's in our opinion, but.
And Jim, if you're watching, we speak for you. Scott, if you're watching, we speak for you. What is it that in Dune, the storytellers? Oh my gosh, I'm blank out.
The what?
There's like in Dune, there's like a term for like people who tell stories.
Oh, I don't remember now.
Anyhow, I can't remember. Something Sayers or something. I can't remember.
I've been wanting to rewatch that movie, the new one. That's another kind of commitment where I think it's about 3 hours. But...
That book's a commitment.
What's that?
That book is a commitment for sure too.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
A commitment I took in junior high, and then I don't know. I was one of those kids who like was very proud reader, and so I felt like accomplished for having completed Dune. But full disclosure, I still haven't seen Dune.
I really liked it. I liked it a lot. I'm dying for the sequel. I mean, it feels very much like half of a story.
Huh.
But I also love, like, I'm going to mangle his name. It's like Denis Villeneuve, I think, the director. He's like French Canadian or something. But I've loved, I think, every single movie of his I've seen. And on top of that, I think they're all just beautiful. If there's one common thing, the thing they all have in common is that they're just really, really enjoyable to look at. So,
yeah, I mean, I feel like his he did he do Blade Runner, or am I crazy?
Yeah, Blade Runner 2049, which,
yeah, that was stunning.
Man, beautiful. Like, and not only, I'm just
close to impossible too. The fact that he pulled it off.
When they announced that, I was so just against in principle. It's like, there's no way you can do a sequel to that movie and do it any justice at all. It's going to be weird and bad and not the same. And I got to admit, not only was I wrong, I was 1,000% wrong, where I think it's better than Blade Runner. Like, it's so good and so well written and so beautifully shot and so well, like, the effects are amazing. Like, it's a great, I think it's even better, like better heights. And it's one of the rare sequels to, especially like a cult classic, which is very hard to do, that really enhances the original. You can watch them back to back, and there's no weird disjointed, like, this feels like a different, like, it's great. Really, one of my favorite movies I've seen in the past, I don't know, 20 years. I mean,
yeah, it was pretty incredible. Yeah. And just the fact that they matched it, like, tonally, it's crazy. I don't know how. I'm still stunned by it. I've seen it a few times, and I still haven't figured out how exactly he pulled it off.
Yeah, Paul, I agree. Like, even though I was fine with it, and I'll avoid the spoilers, but there's a last, I don't know, arc or plot thread or whatever that I think could easily have been rolled over into like the next movie. You know, like, you didn't really, like, there was a clear point in that movie where you could have ended it there. You know, like, it would have been fine. I wasn't complaining. I didn't feel like, oh, now they're just wasting people's time. But it's like, I don't know. It just seemed to, like, oh, we're not done yet. You know, like, there was a point where I was like, for sure, this is it, right? And then, like, oh no, we're still going. But of all the Batman movies I've ever seen, this is the one that, to me, I don't know if everyone would see this as a compliment, it would be easiest for me to picture as a graphic novel. Like, it feels like some really cool, weird kind of standalone Batman graphic novel that they just made a movie out of. Like, it has that kind of, like, I could picture the pages, you know, like, I could picture, like, this being a book. But
nice.
Okay. Crimson Owl, for their 2-year anniversary, is going to spend the whole hour talking about one of the greatest sci-fi horror movies, maybe the greatest sci-fi horror movie of all time, The Thing.
Nice. That's a good topic.
Yeah, that's solid. I can talk about The Thing for an hour for sure.
The visual direction of that movie.
Yeah. Maybe the pinnacle of practical effects. And then, yeah, Paul, I love the Batmobile.
Yeah, didn't they go with, like, more of, like, bringing it a little more back to, like, the Adam West version, in the sense of just, like, having it be like an actual muscle car?
It's like a crazy muscle car with, like, that you can tell, and that's what I liked. Yeah, I love the Nolan Batman movies. Nobody get me wrong. I hate the Tumbler. Like it makes no sense to me. They would like you would have 14 helicopters following that shit all the way back to your bat cave. Like how are you're gonna get stuck 500,000 places unless you're rolling over civilian cars and killing people. Like it was too much. It was too much. The bike was cool. The motorcycle was cool, but the Tumbler I thought was too much.
I think the Tumbler made sense for Nolan's Batman, you know, because it was like much more just like a military vehicle.
Yeah, like military.
Yeah. I agree. If you're trying for like especially if they're going a detective angle, which from what I hear is what they've gone, then it makes perfect sense that you need it to be more of a traditional Batman, you know, Batmobile. Like it's got to be something he can take on the streets, and it's not going to like you said, bring all the cops there, you know.
That was especially if you're trying to do a modern day realistic Batman, you know. And I always kind of cringe when people anytime like when the Nolan movies are out and it's like, oh, it's like a realistic take. It's like the most realistic superhero. It's like Bruce Wayne going to ninja school is realistic to you. Like, I mean, like, okay, you know, but anyway, my thought is like, it needs to be a car that somehow can blend, you know, like, cause otherwise how are you not just following it all the way back? Now, the Batmobile, it still looks pretty insane, but it at least could get down a normal city street and it could at least maybe in the night pass for some kind of a weird car that some dude made. Like, you know, like it's not like way out there where it's not.
Well, that's a really good point about the Tumbler too. It's like, you know, Gotham City is supposed to be like a kind of amalgamation of like Chicago and New York and like Boston, like all these big cities. And yet like a key thing about cities like that is that everything's packed. And you have alleyways, and you're going to be a guy who's driving a vehicle that can't get through
that's like a tank
most roads.
Like he would go around the first turn and then there'd be a traffic jam and he'd be stuck there. You know, like it just doesn't make so like no one's ever going to ask me to do this, and I wouldn't want to do it even if they asked me. But if I was like, okay, you need to do the Gary Hodges standalone Batman story, I think it would be some sort of car that can transform into a Batmobile, like the panels flip or something where it can pass as a normal car, you know, like, because otherwise I don't know how he's getting away and how he's getting from A to B without everyone like, is that the Batmobile that just went by? You know, like, I mean, you'd have to like somehow make this car blend. So, and I thought the Batman did the best kind of thought about that, but it's really cool. Great sound design. Like when that engine fires up in the Batman movie, it's a pretty awesome moment. It's a pretty, like, you feel like, oh shit, it's gonna be crazy. But
was the sound design like a Nolan film where like you hear like subwoofer hums over dialogue, or what did you
fortunately,
by the way, I love the Nolan films, but that's my one beef.
No, there is a weird there's a great moment. I'm not going to spoil it, but there's a moment where stuff is happening. It's looking bad for hero characters. And then this engine fires up, you know, and no one knows where it's coming from. And it's such a great, like, little Batman movie moment, you know, that where like everyone's like, what is that? And then they realize what it is. And then the audience realizes what it is. It's pretty cool. I
love it. I am extremely excited. I think I've finished roughing and thumbnailing a page. Now I just have to format it a little bit.
Yeah, I'm kind of in I've got all my dialogue in. I've got it mostly placed. Now it's going to be hand-wringing over how big should this character, like where exactly, like it's a lot of just layout perfection.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to be.
And then I'll start doing some lines. Drawing lines, not cocaine.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you're talking to somebody from LA and you're just casually like, I'm gonna start doing some lines, I'd be like,
and you know,
what kind
I
of
guess
lines
if
are
I
you
was in
talking?
LA, that might be a normal part of the process. I don't know. It's like, so I'm gonna get my dialogue in. I'm gonna do some lines. I'm gonna start drawing.
I don't know if it's a normal part of the process, but I'm just saying in the Los Angeles area with like Hollywood types, that's a different.
Yeah.
That's got a different.
A not abnormal part of the process, maybe.
So Gary is going to be doing lines of cocaine.
Yeah. I've never done cocaine, kids. Don't just say no. I've literally never done.
Oh yeah, neither have I. Even as an irresponsible teenager who did do a little bit of drugs, I never did anything snortable or injectable.
I've never even seen cocaine.
Yeah.
Like I know people who have. I was interested. There's this guy I knew in college who had tried it, and I was very interested. Not like personal interest, but just curious. I was like, "What was it like? Tell me about it." And he was like, "I did a line, and I immediately knew I can never do this again because it was so great." You know, and I was like, "Oh,
yeah." I don't know. And there's just something about the snorting something thing that just seems like a really bad idea. And then again, also, I'm like at an age where most of that stuff seems like a really bad idea.
Yeah, I'm not.
You know, but yeah.
But the closest analogy I came up with is like that's the same feeling I had when I had a sausage and egg McGriddle from McDonald's. I realized
that I can get on board with. Okay.
Never again. I had it. It was amazing. And I was like, I can never have this again because it's like I want it all the time. So I
have to say,
cocaine is basically like a McGriddle, guys.
So like the McGriddle analogy is good because I'm the guy who I tried it. I was like, I can't ever have one of these again. And then I subsequently, maybe once a year we'll get a McGriddle just because it's so bad it's good.
I don't think I've had a McGriddle since that first time. I like there's other things that I have.
It's good self-control of you.
Yeah, I really resisted. I don't know. For some reason it hit my brain just right where I was like, this is wonderful and terrible for you.
Yeah, they're so bad.
Really bad. It's just like a
But see, I'm guessing it must have so we must be similar then in the sense that the McGriddle for me, the reason it's such it's hitting all those points is I'm like a breakfast guy. Like I am a big fan of I like breakfast stuff. If I get Mexican food, I usually want to get a breakfast burrito.
Same. Yeah.
I'm all about breakfasts and syrup. And so something about just loading all of that terrible sugary syrupy stuff together is just, I don't know, it hits that breakfast junkies spot, No,
I'm definitely a breakfast. Anytime of day, whatever. If I can get like some pancakes and sausage, sounds great. Or some, huevos rancheros or something. You bet.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never pass up a breakfast burrito almost anywhere. Like
that's my go-to. That's my absolute favorite food.
I don't think the Schumacher. I kind of have blocked out the Schumacher Batmans. I don't remember.
Yeah, what Batmans?
Yeah, right.
I do remember. Okay, I think I would rewatch it just for seeing Arnold Schwarzenegger's terrible.
Where he had all the ice puns, all the cold.
Yeah, puns. It'd be like, you need to chill out.
Right. Man. And Uma Thurman is Poison Ivy. Now it's coming back. I wish it hadn't been brought up because I think I had successfully not really thought about Schumacher Batman in a long time. But
yeah, I think it was all glow in the dark.
Yeah, there's a lot of day glow kind of and nipples on the bat suit. That was the thing, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that happened. So anyone who complains about modern Batman movies, we can school them and be like, you didn't live through that.
Yeah. But no, see the Batman. Squatch, did you see the Batman? What did you think of it? Maybe Squatch can't answer. Maybe he's actually working.
Oh, well said, Paul. So Paul's in our breakfast club. Oh my gosh, we have a breakfast club, you guys.
Breakfast Club. IHOP, you know, like I'll do IHOP and if I'm desperate, but I gotta say, like IHOP has surprisingly bad pancakes.
Oh, they're terrible.
You know? Yeah, for like a place where it's on the sign. Like I don't understand. Like I think I'd rather have a Denny's pancake.
Okay, so there is a place near me that is world famous. It's actually in Lancaster, and it's one of the few things in Lancaster that's like world famous, other than like our defense contract industry. And it's called Crazy Autos. It was like this. It is a legit, just authentic diner. And the reason it was called Crazy Autos was they built it by the train tracks. So the building used to actually shake physically every time the train passed. And I think eventually they had to move the location, but they took it apart like piece by piece. Anyhow, they make just all sorts of disgusting breakfast stuff that is amazing. But it's like stuff like a chili cheese omelet, and it's about the size of like a football field when you order it. If you are ever in the Antelope Valley, that would be one of the places to go. It does all the things IHOP's pretending to do, but because it's a mom and pop diner.
Well, if the California crew does make the pilgrimage to Phoenix or Arizona in general to meet up, I've got all the recommendations. Like we're gonna do like a lot of crazy eating. So
yeah, and I got to test out this claim of there being like some decent Mexican food out there.
You know, it's funny. I was thinking about that the other day, and I was thinking about like I need to get my places lined up because it's got to be a strong showing. Yeah. Like it can't just be like, okay, like I need to like swing for the fences with the places that it's like we're going. There's one place. I think I got one or two places though that I think are strong, very very strong. That even if you don't agree, Phoenix beats LA area for Mexican food. You'll at least have to admit it was a strong showing.
That's my point. I don't want it to beat. I want it to at least come close.
To match, maybe. Like to come, yeah. So that's going to be my goal. And then for sure, none of this In-N-Out nonsense. We're doing Shake Shack, and you're gonna have a Shake Shack burger, and you're gonna see the error of your ways.
All right. Maybe I'll come over to Corey's side of the fence there. Corey Kerr for years and I have had a intense, almost like comes to blows, back and forth argument about whether In-N-Out burger is excellent or not. Ironically, when he came to California, he did eat In-N-Out. So I'm just saying, like,
yeah, look, I eat In-N-Out. I do, like, and I like it. It's very good. It's not the best. It's very good, and mostly, and even In-N-Out diehards usually will admit this. I don't know if you will. I don't know if you're at that point yet, you know, where you're willing to admit the truth, but. In-N-Out loses the most points when it comes to fry quality. That's really its big Achilles heel is fry quality, and that I think that's
you gotta do the fries right. You gotta do animal style, and you have to eat like the thing about In-N-Out fries is they are excellent, but they aren't like fries that you pick up and then take home and are still excellent. Like you have to eat them the second you order them.
Well, that's kind of any fry. Like a fry has a very short lifespan.
Yeah, but In-N-Out fries have like you take a regular fry lifespan.
Even shorter.
Yes. Yes.
I do have to. Last time I went to In-N-Out, I got the fries with melted cheese and the cut up peppers.
Yeah, animal style. Mm-hmm.
Well, I didn't do animal style last time. It was
Oh.
just melted cheese and peppers. And I was eating them with a fork. I waited a little too long. The fries were weird. The cheese had cooled off where it became more like almost solid again.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was a very bad experience. So it just shows like, yeah, you need to be eating that shit in the car.
Yeah.
Like immediately. As soon as they hand it to you, you need to be digging it. Basically.
Yeah, don't drive like again, most French fries have a short lifespan, but like most places you could like pick up food, bring it home, eat it at home.
Yeah,
In
you
and
can.
out, you get those fries, you eat them. Like
no, you pull out of the line immediately, park and eat. Like that's the
Mhm.
only way to do in and out. It's it doesn't work otherwise.
But it's the best.
Chase, I would agree that Batman Returns is a very good movie.
Oh man, the Tim Burton Batmans are like they're good in their awesome like Tim Burton before he started recreating a bunch of every property for Disney kind of way. There was an era of Tim Burton that I very much miss nowadays. I very much miss.
Yeah.
Like
yeah, that's another what I was talking about with Jim last time we talked is the tragedy of Tim Burton.
I mean, Ed Wood. Ed Wood was one of the best. It's still, I'd say it's probably on my like maybe top 10 movies.
The Pee-wee
It's
movie.
a good movie. Oh, the Pee-wee movie, Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Yeah. Yeah, but then
Edward
it was
Scissorhands.
I think there was. I think the sad thing is there was some point where he was like, and I can't judge. I don't know. Maybe I would do the same thing if I was in his position. But like, he was trying to do just giant movies, and I don't think he's a giant movie guy. Like, I think he does little weird movies, and like, so once he started like Planet of the Apes and Alice in Wonderland and Willy Wonka and all this shit, it's like, what are you doing, man? Like, it's just not. That's not. I don't know. The thing I said as just a thought experiment that I said to Jim, what if Tim Burton had approached his career like Wes Anderson, where instead of saying, how do I get more accessible, he said, I'm going to double down every time on what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to become even a more extreme version of me, like Wes Anderson has. Like, I think there'd be some really amazing Tim Burton movies right now had he done.
I agree, but there's a whole slew of people who hate Wes Anderson, of which I'm not a part, because I am totally a cliche hipster. I like Wes Anderson.
I love it. I just saw French Dispatch a couple weeks ago. I think, totally people hate him, but I'm of the school of like, if you're not polarizing your audience, you're not doing anything interesting.
Yep.
Like I like the only and the surest way to do kind of boring, forgettable work is to try and get a broad audience. Like that's immediately like going to be the least interesting work you can put out there. And I kind of think that's a little bit. This is very easy for me to say in my little office chair here. I think Tim Burton is sanding off the most polarizing edges of his aesthetic to be accessible, and as a result, sanded away anything that was really interesting about what he does.
I also think like this weird thing happened with culture too, where Tim Burton became so big that like it kind of became very mainstream what he was doing already. So some of the little quirks that were very like legitimate things, it's almost the thing that happens with like a band that becomes mainstream, and then a lot of bands replicate what they're doing. And then suddenly what they're doing starts to seem more and more generic because they aren't pushing it any further. Yeah. But also, I think it's one of those things like Chris Cornell's hip hop album, which I love bringing up as an example of like.
I know. You'd love to, which I never hear about it except from you. I
really need to. Have you listened to it?
No.
You have to. Just Spotify today. It will kill your soul.
That's funny.
But it's a good example. I think that's a little bit of that's happened with Tim Burton, where it's like executives kind of feeding an ego, and then like believing the hype. It's like
Yeah.
the thing that happens with dictators, right? Where like you have like
Right.
dictators who are surrounded by yes men, and suddenly they start believing
The
their
party
own
line.
propaganda.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, this is, and so Paul, I'm not saying Tim Burton sold out. This is my armchair analysis of what happened. Based on nothing. Based on one idiot's watching his movies and like my hot take. I think he had a great strong start. I think he did Batman and blew up. He did Batman Returns and made it even more his own thing, and that's kind of what I love about Batman Returns. It's like it's so Tim Burton-y. Like you can tell
that's perfect. Yeah,
he's like making this interesting for himself by putting a lot of himself into it. Like you can tell like deep down he doesn't really give a shit about Batman, so he's making it interesting to him by making it very Tim Burton. Okay, he does that. He starts planning his totally weird Nick Cage Superman movie. And at that point, for whatever reason, Warner Brothers blinks. And like, your Batmans are very weird and dark, and we don't know about Nick Cage and his glowing Superman suit. It's been a great run, but I think we're ready to move on and see other people. And like they get Joel Schumacher, and I think that really wounded him. I think it really wounded him, and his reaction, in my opinion, should have been a Wes Anderson reaction where I was like, well, fuck you guys anyway. Like, this is what I make, and I'm going to keep making this stuff because this is what's interesting to me and what makes me stand out from everybody else. Instead, I think he took it kind of personal, and he's like, I need to show them that I can do big studio stuff. I need to show them that I can be a safe bet. I need to show them that I can play in the system. Like, I need to, and it's not selling out. I think it's him feeling a little wounded and trying to demonstrate, like, no, I can be like a director just like anybody else. See, and trying to ingratiate himself to people who don't give a shit about him anyway, and he shouldn't. That's my hot take. And I think at his best, he's doing small, weird movies that find a cult audience.
yeah.
And he tries to open up and no, look, I can be trusted with an Alice in Wonderland thing or Willy Wonka thing. It's like, that's not authentic.
Although I will say, even though I'm not like a big fan of the movie version of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, it was a lot closer to the book. I will give it that. Which I was kind of happy to see a little bit. I'd like to see somebody get even closer to the book by maybe casting a different head of the chocolate factory, but like a different Willy Wonka basically would make that movie possibly better. But I think another thing that's like that I miss about Burton was the authorship. Like I feel like you're right. Like with like Ed Wood, like what's so magical about that is like his full control over the entire aesthetic, the look. Same with like Edward Scissorhands, where it's like everything down to like the entire suburb. It's just, I don't know. It's like I think his newer stuff is like it's almost like too many cooks because it's too big of a production to be that beautiful Tim Burton stuff we all like. I think liked. I disagree with Paul. Nick Cage Superman should have happened. I want to see it. I think that would have been hilarious.
I think it should have. I disagree too. And look, I will admit there are a lot of parts of my life I probably would have, just from what I've read about it, the screen tests I've seen, like what the thing, I probably would have hated it. Totally hated it. But I think I would have loved how weird and individual it was. And I think, I'll make an admission here. When I first saw Batman Returns, I didn't like Batman Returns. I thought this is just too weird, and I gradually grew to appreciate it. I think the Nick Cage Superman, it might have been the same for me. My initial reaction might have been revulsion. And then as time went on, I'd be like, you know what? It's kind of a wild take and it's kind of cool. And like, kudos to him for like doing that,
I want it to exist is my only point. I'm not
Yeah.
even saying it would be a good movie. In fact, I think it might have been one of the worst movies ever made, which again, why couldn't they make that? I want to see that. Like, I want to see. They've made plenty of bad Superman movies. So it's like, if you're going to make a bad Superman movie, why couldn't we have seen Tim Burton making this insane take on, like, I would have loved to see that.
Well, I think at this point, and sorry if you're a fan of the Snyderverse or what the DC, movie unit's doing, but like, I think this has demonstrated that like the movies can't kill properties.
Yeah.
Like, you can have a lot of like spectacularly bad takes on these characters, and it doesn't matter. Like, like you can just do it again in a few years and take another shot at it. So like, so what's the harm? Like, might as well like have a weirdo Superman out there with Nick Cage in a glowing suit. Like, sure, okay,
I will say though, I agree with you, but then I did get a little like fanboyish about, like, I feel a little fragile about the Netflix Sandman. I am so invested in them nailing that and getting it right.
Yeah.
I will be really sad if it's not right. And yet I also accept that that's how people feel about Superman or like Batman or like these other properties. I feel that way about the Sandman, I think even more because Superman and Batman are huge. Everyone knows Superman and Batman.
Yeah.
By this point, you kind of know the story. I think most people have a sense of if it's gotten right or wrong. And even if like a wrong version comes out, eventually there will be a right version. I feel like with the Sandman, if they blow this, they're not going to give it another shot. And they've talked about greenlighting this series, one of the best series ever made in comics for years. So I do get a little fan.
No, that I fully agree with that. I should say, like what I had said before, that applies to Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Wolverine, like all this, like these characters that it's like you can do any version of this, and
characters that are on pajamas, basically.
Yeah, it's gonna be fine.
Yeah,
but yeah, Sandman or any of these other weird things where it's like you're lucky anything's even being made. Yeah, you want to get that right. Because you could salt the earth in a way where it's like, well, you fucked that up. Like, and now we gotta wait 15 years before anyone wants to try again.
I know. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta bail.
Because I think I'm at the point where to get this where I need it, I need to focus and not talk. So, but I appreciate you being there.
Thanks for letting me be on it. It was fun. I got 2 refs done, which is awesome because my goal today is to get 5. Nice. I will be streaming later in the day. Awesome. So, cool. But thank you for having me on.
And then everyone, we'll see you next week. Josh, do you want to plug anything before you go? Like push your. I saw Amazon sent me a thing saying like an updated ship date for Jacob's apartment. So,
ooh. What's the ship date? Is it?
I don't even remember. I just know they moved it up. So like.
So yeah, it's probably up because like part of why the release is officially the 7th was because of the paper shortage, and so there was uncertainty about the printer. And of course, the publisher is going to say later, like a guaranteed date as opposed to like earlier. But I will say the fact that I have a copy bodes well for the fact that like these books are in warehouses right now.
They're existing.
And I will say they're beautiful. It's probably the most beautifully printed book that my artwork's been featured in.
Very nice.
Including signatures in binding. So if you see that little loop.
I do.
So I'm nerded out about this, but we were talking about Wes Anderson. If you're into Wes Anderson, this will be right up your alley. It's in that Royal Tenenbaums kind of vibe of storytelling. It even has a mention of Franny and Zoe in a sequence of it, which is something that highly influenced Royal Tenenbaums and Wes Anderson. So there's a connection there. So go buy this book or pre-order it. And then, other than that, I'll probably be on stream later today. So if you aren't yet, obviously be subscribed to Gary's stuff, but also come by my YouTube and check out my stream and stuff.
There you go.
Yeah.
Do it.
And get Dinosaurs versus Mars bots already.
Reorder. So yeah, just to update everyone. Let me mute you real quick while the dogs lose their minds. Oh, wait.
I'll take that as an opportunity to bail.
Okay, all right. See you later. DvsM, so DvsM 1975 and 97 reprint order is being placed this coming Wednesday. So I'll be able to update my listings on Etsy, and I'll have some supply to take to Phoenix Fan Fusion at the end of the month. More info on that when I get it. So if I'm placing the reorder on Wednesday, I don't know when that means I have comics in hand. I don't know what their schedule is right now, how far ahead or behind they are with printing. I would think at most a couple weeks, but we'll see. I'll let you all know. And that's about it for now. I will see you all next week when I am hopefully starting 14. Then for now, back to work on page 13. I will talk to you all later. Good luck this weekend. Happy Mother's Day to people. I think that's Sunday. And if you're doing Free Comic Book Day, again, must be nice. Anyway, talk to you later.